Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's Danny Limelight. And I need all of you to subscribe to According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and all other platforms.
What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of talking to a person who is of many talents and many monikers, actually. You might know her as Raja from WoW, or Sarah the Rebel, co-host of one of my favorite YouTube channels, WWT Women's Wrestling Talk. She's the one and only Sarah the Rebel. What's going on?
Hey, what's up? Happy to be here.
Well, happy to have you here. Obviously, you are making so many strides, right, in everything, whether it be your wrestling career, kind of parlaying what you kind of built at AfterBuzz, right, and doing with some of your AfterBuzz cohorts and Emily May and TK Trinidad in doing WWT, which is a kind of a spinoff of what you guys were doing at AfterBuzz.
Yeah, definitely. And even better in some ways because we have more control over it this way. There were some behind the scenes things, I won't get into it, but they're very strict about stuff over at AfterBuzz. And so we weren't always able to do what we wanted to do, but now we have the hosts we want, we have the show we want, and we can do what we want. So it's even better than what we were creating before. So we're really excited about it.
Oh, well, the proof is in the pudding because it's some of the best content that I have seen or even viewed, so I love it. And sometimes it's weird, when you're kind of limited. Like, yes, the access is there, right? The access, like, AfterBuzz TV on the same deal as X-Pac 123 60 and everything like that. But then, like, you're kind of confined. And funny enough, not that I'm AfterBuzz, right? But I feel a certain kinship. Flobo Boys was actually trying to work me in probably about, now we've been 8 months in quarantine, so probably about a little over a year ago, right? So I was kind of working in, and then whatever. But it's awesome to see literally everyone, right? Like from Farmer to George Moza to Flobo, like you gals, like it's just absolutely amazing to see it and to really see you guys showcase your creativity in the best way possible and the way that you see fit.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so much fun. It's a lot of work because, of course, like you're saying, AfterBuzz, it is known, so it's a little easier to get guests. But also, they had that studio and they had producers, and so they had a lot. They had a sound guy, so we're having to now do that kind of on our own. We do have one producer, Josh Rodriguez. I'll give him a shout out for dealing with us. But so it's a challenge. We're learning every time, but it's also so fun and so worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And BJ Darden, the notorious Bad Blood, the longest reigning NWA Pacific Northwest champion, says, bro, I need to have her on the round table. So I guess that would be, yeah, you go ahead and reach out, my man. I'm just saying, and BJ Darden is the head promoter and owner of Blue Collar Wrestling, BCW, and they have a cool talk show on the BCW Worldwide YouTube and Twitter and Twitch stuff. So I probably mumbled that, but whatever, But go ahead and check them out. And Adis says, love your vlogs, and that's probably to you because I don't do much vlogging. Okay. Oh, thank you, sir. Yeah, and he says BCW Worldwide, 100%. So my goodness, all right, how'd you get into pro wrestling?
So I was in the video game industry in LA. That's why I moved to LA from Virginia. And I used to go to all of the conventions. So I was at an E3 and I met Xavier Woods. And we started talking, of course, because we're nerds. And in the course of our conversation, he says something about wrestling school. And I was like, what? You go to school for that? Because at the time I was watching wrestling, it was like models were women wrestlers, except for a few bodybuilders. So it didn't occur to me, my child's mind, it's like you are a famous model and then you become a wrestler. So I decided to look up a wrestling school, and I found Santino Bros right away. They have very good SEO, but it was like thousands of dollars. So I was like, put a pin in that. Woods gave me and my old podcast co-host, Tamara Brooks, tickets to go to see a Raw show. Now, I had never seen a live show before because when Eddie Guerrero came to Hampton, Virginia, he rode my brother's lowrider in, but they told me, oh, it's not for little kids, so you can't go. But they were wrong. That's all that is at a wrestling show. So I don't know if they lied to me on purpose or if they just thought because I was a little girl, it would be like, I have no idea why they didn't let me come. Anyway, so long story short, when we got out of the show, there was a flyer in the car and it was for Santino Bros. And I kind of took it as a sign. I was like, okay, I'm just going to sign up and see what happens. And so I did. And that was, I think 4 years ago now. 3 or 4 years ago. It's hard to tell because I did training for a few years before I actually started wrestling. But yeah, and the rest is history.
My goodness. And I mean, the amount of talent that Santino's has, I mean, for me, growing up in LA for the most part, I mean, when I don't even see him as Joey Munoz. He's chaos, like the rock star chaos. And he was like the biggest heel that I think the LA scene had seen like homegrown since probably the days of the Grand Olympic Auditorium and Roddy Piper playing like the Mexican national anthem on bagpipe. And it ends up being La Cucaracha because that's heat. That's heat, right? But it's crazy because I mean, you see Alyssa Moreno, you see Adnan Qureshi, and that's not even talking about like the in-ring talent, like yourself, like
Jake Atlas,
it's just amazing.
King, Tyler Bateman at Ring of Honor, like yeah, and it's been it's one of the most prestigious schools, and I would say personally, look at how many Rookie of the Year nominees come out of Santino Bros. Even the people who don't make it all the way to big places, it's undeniable that they have something really special there at Santino's. And it's Joey Chaos, but it's also Robbie Phoenix, who is just an amazing teacher. He understands how to get you to understand. And if you're not understanding one way, he's going to try this other way. He has, I think, 5 or 6 Rookie of the Years under that he can say are directly from his teaching. So shout out to Robbie, my trainer.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. And again, that's one of because when you get Chaos, and his name's so synonymously attached for good reason, to the product and the brand, you kind of lose some stuff into the ether. So I'm glad that you're giving that man his due because it's well deserved. Now, in terms of like, I think it's funny, right? Because like you kind of thought about wrestling through Xavier Woods, right? And so to it, your co-host TK Trinidad at WWT shared a similar experience when she was on. So it's kind of funny,
right? It definitely is a weird circle, and then. Woods and I kept in touch for a bit. I didn't tell him I was training because I didn't want him to think I was like being a stalker. I don't know why. I was like, that just sounds like I met you and now I'm doing your job, right? That's kind of weird. But when he started his Twitch channel, he would message me, and because I was on Twitch at that time, and so I helped him build his Twitch channel and helped him understand like, how mods work and this and that, and like helped him every way I could. And now he's like this huge, not just wrestling star, but Twitch star as well. So I'm like, that's pretty cool. He helped me, but I also helped him a little bit.
No, 100%. And again, that's the reciprocation. That's what you want in not just, wrestling, combat sports, but like all in life, so that's what you want to do. But I agree. Red says Sarah's amazing. Couldn't agree with you more, good sir. And yeah, so there's it. And I need to know what's on Sarah's recently played on Spotify or Pandora. So let's go ahead and indulge.
Sure. So normally I spend most of my time listening to PJ Butter or D-Nice on Instagram Live because I'm enjoying kind of the camaraderie. So I only really listen to Spotify and Pandora when I'm ready to go to sleep, usually. So it's mostly Sade. Because I find her very relaxing. But I did dive into a nice 80s playlist on Pandora just because I had a bunch of work to do and I was feeling stressed. And I was like, I want to feel happy. So I just put a bunch of 80s music on.
Oh, do you know the 1975?
No.
Okay. So that is my recommendation. I feel honored that I'm sharing musical stuff with Sarah the Rebel, but the 1975. probably one of my favorite bands out of England. So they do a cool little cover of Sade's "By Your Side."
Uh-huh.
It's not bad, not
Oh,
bad is what I'm saying.
all right,
You
guys.
know, yeah. So, and then and BJ says collab time. So there's that. Now, in terms of what you saw, right? In terms of like what you saw in the like your early kind of foray into viewing pro wrestling, getting into Santino's, it's completely different, right? So what was the biggest difference or misconception that you might have had as a fan that pretty much got shattered once you started training?
So I had done MMA style training before. I had done Muay Thai, and I've been a fighter my whole life. I know this is terrible to say, but I love to fight. I was getting suspended from school constantly. I was fighting in the neighborhoods. It got to the point where the adults in my life were like, hey, you're going to ruin your whole life. Stop it. So I kind of thought getting into wrestling would feel really good because I get to fight again, and that I'd be good at it because I am a good fighter. But the truth is, it is so completely different than fighting that your kind of MMA background doesn't translate at all. And I've heard this from people who are way better at MMA than I am. I've seen it, I've witnessed it, they've said it themselves. Wrestling is unlike anything else. It forces you to fight every instinct in your body to do. An acrobat is going to have a much easier time being a wrestler than a fighter is, because you have to trust and you have to open your body to what your instincts are telling you is going to kill you. Like throw your body on the ground and don't protect yourself. Like, what? Well, I don't want to do that. Go upside down. Well, that doesn't sound good for me. Take a punch in the face. These are things that, like, if someone throws a punch at me, I want to block it. But in wrestling, you have to open yourself to it. So I think that was the biggest thing for me is I'm used to generally being good at things I want to do. And I was not good when I first started. I couldn't make my body move the way it needed to move. And it was just so disheartening and disappointing to me. And so eventually I got some really bad injuries. I couldn't walk. I had to use a cane. My boyfriend had to carry me to the toilet. It was pretty bad. And so I quit wrestling because I was like, well, I'm not good at it. I can't do it. And so what I did do is I started doing Pilates because I had a friend. She's married to Lasercorn, if anyone knows him from Smosh, but she showed me, she's like, Pilates will really help you with your back issues. So I trained, and then I went back to wrestling. And the second time around was pretty awesome. Santino Bros grades you. You have a final in each section of their school, and they grade you on it. And for my final, I got an A, and I was one of only a few people. I think there's either 3 or 5 people got an A. And I was one of them. And it just to see the 180 from when I first started to when I came back that's what got me to keep going and not to give up.
Now, in terms of the Pilates, that's not something that most people are like, pro wrestling Pilates, right? But then again, I'm sure DDP, when he had yoga, I mean, he himself, when his wife at the time, Kimberly, was saying like, oh, you should do yoga to help out your back and everything like that. And he's been able to kind of rectify his back issues, no surgery at all, and I mean, it's cool. So, I mean, Pilates, it doesn't seem on paper like it would work, but how has Pilates worked out for you?
So it's most people, when they're like, what should I work on before wrestling training? Most people tell them hit high intensity interval training, because what you're doing in the ring is a lot of stop and go. But when people ask me about it, I tell them Pilates and hit. If someone like me, I'm a gamer. I sit in my chair and I game. I go to work and I type on a computer. That's been my life before wrestling for decades. That shortens the muscles of your back and it interferes with your back. And what a lot of people don't realize is your back is the foundation of your entire body and your strength and your capabilities. So Pilates builds your core, and your core includes your back. And Pilates can be very intense. So this is the thing. I always heard the word Pilates and I picture like soccer moms go to Pilates. Pilates is hard. You could be a wrestler and go to. Tyler Bateman was in my house cussing, upset, couldn't like do half the things. Same thing, Ricky Mandel. Like every wrestler I've introduced to Pilates is like, God dang, this is really difficult. So we all have this perception of Pilates. It's actually not what Pilates is. And it helps strengthen your core, which is what you need to be taking your bumps. It's what you need to hold somebody up in the air above you. It's what you need to be able to move around on the ground for your ground game. Like it's awesome. Can't recommend it enough.
I think it's amazing. Now, Alex Ramirez has a very cool comment. He said, like your shirt, rocking that Owen Hart from Pro Wrestling Tees. But you're hood. Sarah's hood. Definitely about that life. I need Sarah the Rebel type of girl. I mean, I'm going to throw out the Mario Yamasakis to you, good sir. And DDP is the man, absolutely. So in terms of like your training, right? How long was it before you had your first? Did you have a match, your first match, or?
Yes, I'm trying to remember the years. I'm sorry. I think my debut was 2018. And I think I started training in 2016, I think. Because I started training, I stopped, I came back to training, and then I actually switched over into the manager side of things, and I graduated through the manager class. So when I made my debut at Santino Bros, it was as a manager. But Santino Bros is very traditional about stuff. It was still like, they're like, that was your debut, welcome to the business. Like they have a whole, like, not a whole ritual thing, but a little bit of a ritual thing to kind of let you know, like, you're a part of this world now, and there's a certain thing that is expected of you from now on. So my wrestling debut was actually at WOW. So I trained at the WOW dojo, and then debuted at WOW as Razor. And then as Sarah the Rebel, well, I was Sarah Wolf at the time, but outside of WOW, then my wrestling debut was at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood a bit later. So I had a very slow, long process to actually wrestling, because I was focused on the manager aspect at first.
But it's kind of cool that you had both sides of it, to kind of, I mean, I don't think outside of like a referee, right, that you would have as close quarters access to like what's going on and being able to sit under the learning tree, so to speak, right? So that was amazing, right? So I mean, I love that you're a part of WOW. And just a bit of total disclosure, because I mean, not just that I'm friends with like Keita Rush or Dagger and you as well, but when I was growing up in Inglewood High, in Inglewood, California, in Inglewood High, that was like kind of like when the Lakers and everybody had like left, right? So it was pretty much on its like last legs. But one of the things that was kind of like a week to week thing was WOW, the first incarnation in the early 2000s, take their TV there. And I was a part of Inglewood ROTC. And anytime, anywhere in like that South Bay region wanted like bootleg security, and like a nice PR piece, like instead of like, oh, I'm gonna hire private security or whatever. Yeah, we'll just kind of check to the ROTC program, and you guys, do the thing. So I was actually a part of security, the security detail for the first incarnation of WOW. So it's really cool to see you do that, and that being your debut, your wrestling debut.
That is so funny that they went to the ROTC. You look like an ROTC guy, by the way. I totally can see that about you. Yeah. So WOW was pretty awesome. I was in Japan visiting, and a friend sent me a link to a job. She said, hey, this sounds perfect for you. And the job was a writer for a women's wrestling show. And I was like, I'm a writer. I'm a published author, and I love women's wrestling. So I applied. Never heard back. Eventually, when I got back to the US, I said, I'm just going to hit them up one more time. So I sent one more message like, hey, turns out they just forgot to reply. So they pulled me in for an interview, and I began writing for WOW. Now, I had actually been to one WOW show before that. A friend of mine from wrestling training was like, hey, you want to come to the show with me? And so we had gone, and I watched one of the earlier seasons of WOW, and I was just really impressed by the pageantry of it all. And I was like, this is what I want. And I remember one time I was cutting a promo, and Eli Everfly afterwards, he said, man, you're like a glow girl. And I wanted to cry. because I was like, that's what I want. Like, if I could be anything in wrestling, I'd want to be a Glow Girl. Just like these colorful characters and these crazy scenarios, not just you flirted with my boyfriend, I'm going to challenge you to a match. Like, they had real crazy situations they were in. So it was like a dream for me. So I started working with WoW. I loved writing for WoW. Almost every WoW biography on their website was written by me. If you want an idea, like I got to do a lot. It's very cool. But then they said they were going to hold auditions. And I said, hey, is it a conflict of interest or could I audition? And Selena Majors told David, she said, listen, if we don't let her audition, she's going to spend the rest of her life wondering if she could have done it. So they decided to let me audition. I knocked it out of the park because your girl knows who she is. And funny enough, somebody mentioned WoW Stare the Rebels Hood. It was that Hood aspect of me that actually led to me becoming Razor, because they already had the character of Razor in mind. And then I fit it, and I was able to draw a lot of inspiration from my childhood and from growing up, you know, kind of in the streets, even though I should not have been. So debuting with them was just amazing. And there was a bit of bullying. There was somebody involved with WoW who was known, everyone knows, for being a bully. And so I actually was going to quit. I was going to have my WoW match, and then I was going to quit wrestling, because I was like, well, one of the greatest wrestlers in the world told me I'm garbage. Why should I disrespect wrestling by continuing to wrestle? But after my match with Lioness, which was Lioness's like second match, Jessica Havoc came up to me. And she said, that was my favorite match of the night. You guys did such a good job. Good job, guys. And I was just like, okay, if Jessica Havoc told me I am allowed to stay in wrestling, then I'm going to keep wrestling. And so I'm so thankful for her. And she continues to inspire me. She's so great.
Yeah, she's absolutely brilliant, and probably has a lot more ring time and experience than somebody who will remain nameless, and that's why they remain nameless. So there's that, you know. But right, but I mean, it's funny because you kind of almost did a Vince Russo, Vern Gagne, and Bill Watts, right? I mean, not to say that you booked yourself on top as champion, but from a writer to, you know, in-ring competitor, just saying. But I mean, again, you fit the part, and I love that you had another side of creativity to contribute to the overall product, and then you're like, oh, but I want to wrestle too, and that fire just, you know, it didn't cease in you, and when it could have, it didn't. So that's awesome.
That's something that I think a lot of people don't realize about wrestling, is sometimes it is easier to get where you want to go from a side path. Cheeseburger with Ring of Honor. He didn't get where he is by being the wrestler the whole time. He was ring crew. He was cleaning up. He was helping with production. He was getting in where he fit in. And that's kind of a really big thing in wrestling. If you can commentate, if you can run the music for the show, if you can manage somebody, if you can referee, be able to do all of those things, because you never know when, okay, you know, let's Aja. She's in the WWE and she's refereeing. She's a wrestler. What if she said, no, I really want to be a wrestler? Well, she wouldn't be at the WWE right now. And who knows what that might eventually lead to for her. So I would say it wasn't so much that I wrote myself. It's that in wrestling, sometimes you don't hear about the opportunity, or you're not there. You know, one day you're sweeping next to the ring and they're like, hey, this person had to cancel. We need a wrestler right now. Well, I'm here. I have my gear. And that's kind of how wrestling works.
No, 100%. I think I talked to Jack Cartwright, and he kind of stressed the importance of just having your gear. Like, you could be, I don't know, like a PA number, 87 or whatever, but if you've got your gear and you're ready to go, a magic can happen, right?
Definitely.
Now, in terms of like the first match, I mean, did you have any? I mean, that's kind of big, right? You're wrestling your first match at a TV taping for, I mean, WoW is run by Jeannie Buss. Like, that's crazy. The fact that they, the theater, like the Majestic Theater, the Belasco Theater, right? That they tape out of. I mean, most people do like crummy gyms and everything. That's not a bad way to start off your in-ring career.
Right. So first of all, like kind of how you were saying before, getting to be a manager really helped me, because I had gone out several times. So I was very comfortable with the entrance, with going out, and being there and having to interact seconds with the crowd. I can't say that my manager work didn't inform my wrestling, because it absolutely did. It gave me the level of comfort I was going to need. But also, so standing at the entrance, standing gorilla position, full panic. Everything in me was like, you could just leave. No one can stop you. Like, what are they going to do? We're suing you for leaving. Like, I could just leave. And my music hit. Okay, there's no choice. My music hit, and I took one step out, and all of that went away immediately. I was just, I know who I am. This crowd has no idea who I am, and they're about to find out. And that's all that settled over me. Like, I just knew as soon as I took a step out there, it was showtime, and everything changed. I wasn't nervous. I felt in control. And that was kind of crazy and amazing, but it's happened to me so many times since, where right before the match, I'm like, I do not know. I don't know what I'm doing. And then I do. The truth is that I do. So, or if I don't, the person I'm in the ring with, I know how to cover it long enough for that person to take over. So that it was an amazing experience and a beautiful experience. So many of my friends were able to come. Because I don't know if any other wrestlers have talked to you about this. It's so hard to get your friends to come to a wrestling show, but because it was WoW and it was this big deal and there were drinks and it's at the Belasco, I actually had a ton of friends there. My coworkers were there, so it was just really special and cool.
No, so I gotta ask, right? Because I mean, you overcame something that, I mean, even within you was like almost like a fundamental darkness, right? And especially this year, right? I mean, we'll call the elephant into the room as it may, has been so crazy for a lot of people, right? But I like to draw inspiration on particular instances. And to me, that was a watershed moment, not just in your wrestling career, but in your life. So, I mean, what did you learn about yourself? The fact that you did take that one step, because sometimes it takes everything in your being, and sometimes some deities that aren't in your being to make that one step, right? But what did you learn about yourself that day through that experience?
Just basically that a lot of things in my life that I didn't know would lead to being good at something did. So, for example, I'd done theater in college. I had done spoken word in college. I knew the fundamental truth of getting on a stage is the audience does not know your lines. Knowing that there is no messing up, there are no mistakes. If you don't show that there was a mistake, the audience has no idea you were supposed to throw a clothesline and you threw a forearm, whatever. And having these random things in my life all gave me the knowledge and the information I needed to be able to have a good match. And the people, of course, I don't want to deny the people and the trainers and the mentors within the wrestling world, absolutely, but also that everything within myself can translate to another situation. And so I've actually taken wrestling back full circle to video games again, and started to dip my toe into video game writing. I can't say anything yet, but I've already gotten the feedback from several companies that what I do in wrestling translates directly into writing for a video game. So I didn't know that before I started, but it's just an interesting circular path in my life.
No, and I mean that euphemism that wrestling is life, right? That, I mean, sometimes it can have like not the best connotation, right? But like this is a real aspect of like, oh, like wrestling. What I learned from wrestling kind of brought me into like this next exciting phase of my career, and that's absolutely amazing.
Definitely.
Now, in terms of road stories, that's kind of without naming names, right? That obviously, a little bit is different once you get away from Belasco, right? So do you have a wrestling road story that you think is like absolutely fun, and you're like, this is only happening in wrestling and no place else?
So I sometimes wrestle at a place called Glam, which is what Hood Slam's female show is called, and or femme focused, I should say. Now from LA to Oakland is a 6-hour drive, and it was always very fun. I go up with all the girls. But when I moved to Vegas, it became an 8-hour drive. And at the time, Sandra Moon was injured, so she was not able to ride with us. So it's just me and Shayna were the only people booked on the show. So we convinced a young girl who's now wrestling in her own right, Queen Estrella, although I think she is changing her name. But she drove us. So here was our situation. I have a driver's license, but I don't actually know how to drive. My driving instructor fell asleep during the test, and she said, well, if I felt safe enough to fall asleep, you must be a good driver. I never drove again from that day because I didn't have a car. That was 8 years prior. Shayna has been driving since she's 15, but she does not have a license. Courtney has a license, had a car, but her car was in the shop for some reason, so we had to use Shayna's car. All right, so these are all the ingredients.
Yes, mitigating factors. Yes.
So Shayna's car, right before we go there, the window falls down and we can't get it back up. Also, her car keeps switching to a mode that makes it jerk to the side every few seconds. And sometimes the lights will just turn on. So they're taking turns driving. I told them I could try driving. I just can't promise you anything. And so they were like, no, you're not going to drive. Okay, cool. I'll just pay gas money and stuff. They tried taping the window. They tried everything. So we're having this hilarious series of terrible events happening as we're driving up there, praying that the cops don't stop us because Shayna is riding dirty and because this car maybe should not be on the road. So eventually we stop somewhere and we're like, okay, we got to do something about this wind because we're on the highway. So they spend about 30 minutes taping saran wrap to the window, and I'm just watching them. I'm not even helping because I'm like, guys, this is not going to work. I'm sorry. This is going to fail. Let's not waste our time on this. They had hope. We're driving and I'm in the back and I just keep seeing Estrella just look, and the windows, and next thing you know, the saran wrap flies off, wraps around everyone. So Shayna's taking the wheel. We're trying to get the saran wrap off of Estrella. I was finding saran wrap in places for days afterwards, just in a phone case randomly in a bag. But it was like in a video game when you watch the spider web just wrap around somebody. And then the ride home through the desert, 3 a.m. with the window down. It was cold. Anyway, that was my most hilarious road story thing. Eventually, Shayna got her car fixed and Courtney got her, she didn't have tags on her car. That's what it was. It wasn't that her car, she didn't have tags. So we did drive her car once, and that was a thing. So yeah, lots of adventure. I still don't know how to drive, but I have held a driver's license in 3 states now. I just got my Nevada one. No idea how to drive.
That's both empowering and scary, all the same. My goodness, it's and I think it's amazing that you guys were. I mean, you guys were headed to the female counterpart of Hood Slam, right? Mm-hmm. Which has been known for, various stages of infamy at their shows, right? And that was probably tame compared to what you guys were about to do. Did and both sides of the trip.
Oh, yeah. No, we love working there. Honestly, it's one of the best places to work because they trust you. There's a lot of places that don't trust you. This place trusts you so implicitly at Glam. If you were like, hey, I'm going to come in with a bucket of blood, is that cool? And they'd be like, all right, could you try not to get it on the ring? But I guess if you do, just help us clean it up. They're very whatever you want to do, we're down. And they have delicious pizza. And it's the environment of the crowd. They don't care about a 5-star match. They want to cheer and boo and get drunk and have a good time. And so it's kind of the best crowd to work for. I feel like everyone has their best matches there because this pressure of wrestling the way someone else wants you to wrestle is gone. And you can wrestle the way you want to wrestle and do the things you want to do. And you have the opportunity to sit under the learning tree of women vets like Katarina Waters and Dark Sheik, who have been doing this for a very long time and are willing to share that knowledge and information with you. And sometimes you get to work with women from other parts of the country. That's how I met Trish Adora. So it's just in the locker room, nobody is catty. Nobody thinks they're better than anybody else. Literally everyone is there to have a good match. And I love it. I miss it.
Oh, well, I gotta ask, what is your favorite match or experience with that promotion?
I had a match that actually was very easy. I was like, oh, this is good. No, I got it. I wrestled Katarina, and we were both magical beings from another dimension. And so we used magic in the match. If you've ever seen Conan the Destroyer, I love the idea of two wizards doing this at each other. No special effects, nothing. Because why would it? Why would two wizards have to shoot fireballs? They're using their brains. So Katarina and I just reenacted the wizard battle pretty much of Conan the Destroyer, and we had a wizard battle in the wrestling ring, and it was beautiful and magical.
So it was a magical match, and people were gathered. So technically, was it Magic the Gathering?
No.
No, yeah. That's my one corny joke.
But I think you can watch that match on Indie Wrestling TV. It used to be on YouTube, but I think they had to take it down for some reason, something to do with music and whatnot. But it's either on the Twitch or it's on Indie Wrestling TV.
Yeah, it's something you definitely got to check out, folks. Now, in terms of like influences, right? Because going from fan to now in-ring talent and performer, obviously what you're looking for is completely different. So I want to ask, like, before you got into wrestling, who was like one of the most influential like workers or just enigmas, wrestlers?
Chyna and Miss Jackie were definitely my favorites, and Luna as well. I liked the strong woman kind of idea. People will tell you all the time when they hang out with me, they not recently, of course, because COVID, but when they hang out with me, they go, "Whoa, you're way shorter than you seem." Even friends who've known me for like 6 years will be like, "Dang, you're short." Because in my mind, I am a big old Chyna type woman. Like that's mentally in my mind, that's where I'm at. So I love to see big, strong women just like kicking butt. And Miss Jackie was just so amazing to me because she got to wrestle the guys. Chyna, you kind of understand because they built that whole thing about her, being able to wrestle the guys. But the fact that Jacqueline was able to do it too was really awesome. Luna was just an amazing character, hands down. And I personally hated that she had to keep losing to Sable when she was clearly carrying Sable. But so those kind of powerhouse women were my favorites. And it also just meant a lot to me as a kid that Chyna was also treated as sexy with the whole Eddie Guerrero storyline, because strong women were always treated, you're a man, you look like a man, what are you, a man? Like it was not loved for women to have muscles like it is now. Like now almost every WWE superstar has muscles and shoulders that would be considered like, oh, that's a lot back in the day. So just getting to see that was really important to me as well. So yeah, those three women were very big inspirations. And unfortunately, I'm 5 feet freaking tall. So when I started wrestling, I couldn't do the things that they did because it didn't look right for somebody my size to do it. So I had to develop my own stuff, but they were my inspiration.
Well, I mean, and those are amazing. Those are, I mean, like once, I would definitely want to say like once in a lifetime type talents, both of them. And the fact that they kind of occurred at the same time in front of our eyes, it's amazing. But I remember Jackie, when you're saying like, yeah, and it's not short, it's a vertically challenged. Like I'm 5'9", which is normal for a dude, but I'm like half American descendant of slaves on my dad's side and part Melanesian, right? So theoretically speaking, like my kind of genetic makeup, you get Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So 5'9" is what I'm working with, right? So a little bit different. But the cool thing about Jackie is I remember being in, I think it was like middle school, right? Her in Nitro versus like Hard Body Harrison. And like even my dad, who didn't really like pro wrestling at the time, he was just like, well, what? What are they doing? Like a woman is, fighting a guy and everything like that. And when they were at the, I guess, yeah, I mean, that's what they call it, is Club La Vela, right, in Florida, the Redneck Riviera, right? Yeah. And she like clobbers him and then tosses him into the pool. And I was just like, what? And I mean, especially with all the stuff with Hard Body Harrison that's been found out, he's absolutely deserving, and she probably should have drowned him. But I digress. But I mean, that was just a seminal moment.
It was just a very big deal for me. So I'm actually mixed. My father is a Black man from the Caribbean. And I grew up in Hampton, Virginia, which is a city where 90% of the people that I saw every day were Black. And so to not see that really represented on my television, on the things I like to watch, it was hard for me. So Jackie was a hero for me because I wanted to see more Black women on my television winning championships, and being called beautiful, and all these things like that. Those were all really big moments for me. Grace, again, I'll bring up Conan. I love fantasy, and I had like Grace Jones in Conan the Destroyer, and she hardly got to do anything. And I had Marcus in Xena. But it was still very rare to see Black people in certain. They were on television shows for sure, like family shows, but they weren't really in fantasy. They weren't really in sci-fi. And though they were in wrestling, they weren't getting to be the winners at the time period that I was watching. So that was like all of that combined to just make Miss Jackie, like, I loved her so much. So I was really happy they let her have some wins. And she left because of that thing WWE did where it's like, we don't have any ideas for you. But before she left, because she did right by Stephanie McMahon, Stephanie said, what do you want? And the fact that Stephanie held up her end of the bargain and let Jacqueline do what she wanted to do before she left is just very special to me.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to see kind of like the window, kind of drawn back in terms of what a female competitor can do in that kind of system or not do. In the instance of Selena Vega, right? So, I mean, it's really cool, this respect that they showed her, because you don't necessarily get that. Not everybody gets a Undertaker-esque, kind of send-off.
Right.
Now, you use a lot of purple, which I love, and I kind of, in honor of you, I changed the banners. But yeah, absolutely. So that was the first time ever on According to Woods. But, somebody who essentially wore a lot of purple in his, well, not a lot, but it was distinct purple in his early incarnations, is the aforementioned Undertaker. So as somebody who does, again, like you said, that match was magical. So as somebody that has a mysticism to her character, what did the Undertaker mean to you?
So I loved The Undertaker when I was little, because the idea of kidnapping ladies and then they have to be rescued, that's just so my jam. So I was just like, absolutely loved The Undertaker when I was growing up. And then I actually even liked him as the American Badass with his motorcycle. A lot of times we look at wrestling from the viewpoint of adults. You got to remember, like, for kids, the stuff we think is corny is really cool. And so as a kid, I was like, that's so cool. He's a badass. He's got a motorcycle. I loved it. But funny enough, you're not really encouraged to be a magical character in wrestling. In fact, you're discouraged from doing that. And especially at Santino Bros, they're like, come on, man, no weird shit. But they'll still get weird shit because they won't stop you from being yourself, but they definitely are like, no one's going to buy that. So for example, like Viva Van, she wanted to be like the female Undertaker, and they told her, they were like, nobody's going to be scared of you, which is absolutely true. She's super hot. Like, no offense to her, but she's like so hot. Like, who's going to be scared of her? Who's going to be like, oh, that girl's scared? Nobody, so I get why they try to push us away from that stuff. So I actually did try to keep like my plans for what I was going to be as a wrestler pretty far away from like being inspired by Undertaker at all, because he's kind of seen as the one person who was allowed to do that, and nobody else was allowed to, and nobody else can take it back. Even though Bray Wyatt, if they just let him, maybe he could have, but yeah. So definitely was very big deal to me. And I got to I worked for Loot Crate for a little bit, and I wrote their WWE Crate, and I would write the content that would go into it. And as a thank you, we got free tickets to see one of the Royal Rumbles. I'm sorry, I can't remember which one. I never remember years or dates or numbers even. Well, me and my boyfriend had this talk the other day. Oh, WrestleMania 15. I'm like, baby, those numbers were in Roman numerals. I don't know what WrestleMania I was watching. So the Royal Rumble, I was at the Royal Rumble. We had box seats, and Undertaker appeared in the ring. And just hearing that dung, the goosebumps, I have goosebumps remembering it actually, but the goosebumps that just like, I was a kid again. Undertaker's gonna appear. He's gonna be in the ring. He's gonna be in the ring with the lights come on. He's gonna be, like that. I'm an adult, but that was me in my box seat eating my hot dog, feeling like the luckiest girl in the world. So it was pretty magical.
I think that's absolutely amazing. And just a side note, even still, right? Watching him and I got to meet him briefly at a show outside of the Rabobank Arena in Bakersfield when they had a taping like many moons ago. But it's still weird to see him like speak like a normal person. Like I don't like it. Just there's something in my head that just does not compute. And I've heard him before, but even still, like heard him on TV versus like regular, like it's completely different. And it's still, as a 35-year-old married man with kids, I'm not entirely convinced that if I shut up all the lights, that I'm not going to hear a gong and the shrill of Paul Bear, oh yes, and Undertaker appears. Like I'm not entirely convinced. Like I'm 70% there, but like
Oh,
yeah.
here's my degrees of separation story. Paul Bearer told my boyfriend that he's pretty. So
I
there's,
think that's a win.
you know,
That's a win.
I'm just slightly separated from that. So I take it as part of me now.
Yeah, absolutely, and I mean that definitely justifies and emboldens your pick. So I'm just saying that's not a bad deal, right? To get the seal of approval from Percy
Exactly.
Trimble.
I told him once, I was like, this is why you're so confident, because Paul Bearer told you that. So you're like, if Paul Bearer said it, it has to be true. He's like, absolutely. I can't question that. Like, all right, I'm pretty.
Yeah, no, which I gotta mention that because one of the best things that I love about like you and his relationship in terms of on screen in the ring is this mirror championship belt. And
Yeah.
I'm a belt mark, right? I'm like one of my favorite. I've got like the California State Amateur Women's MMA title here, and a couple replicas, the NWA and World Heavyweight Championship, respectively. But in a business that almost everything has been seen and done before, like I haven't seen that, right? And it's still like, I mean, it should have been done, but nobody did it, and you guys did, and it's amazing. So, talk to me about the creation of that.
Sure. So one day, Ricky Mandel, who you guys, if you don't know what we're talking about, Ricky Mandel was also known as Ricky Mundo. He was on Lucha Underground for 4 seasons. He had the idea that he was the best looking champion. So I'm the best looking champion that's ever worked, blah, 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 blah. So with that idea, he's such a creative person. He has crazy cool ideas all the time. Like he was working with puppets and balloon animals before I saw anybody else doing it. Now he's so hurt to see Bray Wyatt is using puppets because he's just like, no, I can't use my puppets anywhere. But, he comes up with these things. So he came up with, I'm the best looking champion. So he created the mirror image belt around that idea that he's this character who believes that he's so beautiful that he deserves to be the champion and that no one else is good looking enough to own this belt and to be the champion. And so it's kind of this whole cool thing that we can play with of like, looking into the belt and you are seeing the best looking champion. It's the mirror image. Like there's so much we can play with as far as like what it really means. And what it means if you're facing him. Unlike, can he defend that championship? Oh no, you have to be really good looking to even be qualified to take the championship. So it's so fun, and all credit to him. That's all his idea, and I love it. And the fans love it, and it's just fun, because it's the Peacock. What's his name? The Gorgeous George,
Gorgeous George, yes.
Go back to Gorgeous George of like, it's such a good thing for a heel to be like, no, I'm beautiful. Do you see me? And it's fun too, because he has 2 other real championships right now. So he gets to be like, oh yeah, I have 3 belts, and no one questions it. Everyone's just like, yes, this belt he made for himself is real.
But I mean, that's the thing. It's if you make it believable, like it's like if you build it, they will come. It's one of those scenarios, right? 100%.
Definitely. And it's fun working with us and trying to put our characters together was kind of funny because so far, because of the pandemic, we've only worked one place. And that place specifically prefers his old school character, which is Sexy Beach. That guy, he's a sexy beach. Haha, funny joke. But he's from
That's incredible.
Yes,
I think that's just incredible.
Yes. So they like that heel character that he is. I'm technically a spooky character. His character he's been playing is a spooky character. creepy, spooky Ricky Mandel. Like he's got his eyeliner and stuff like that. But they actually wanted him to be Sexy Beach here. So we've put together a sexy guy with a creepy girl. And so a lot of our stuff has been trying to figure out, where does that intersect? What can we take from each of us? You know, because if we work somewhere else, we'd obviously have him be his creepy character and we'd be two creepy creeps. But, you know, so like Sarah Wolf kind of style, but coming out with a seashell top, or, you know, wearing brighter colors, but with still like the dark goth look. So it's been really fun to see, where does Sarah the Rebel fit in with this guy from Sexy Beach? And we're having a lot of fun with it.
I mean, the concept in itself, I mean, it sounds art house as fuck, but I love it. And that's, again, it tests your, not just limitations, but your expectations of what you can do as a performer, you know, because it's like two oblong things.
Right.
Of course, there's chemistry, you know, away from the ring, but like theoretically, you have to create that chemistry in the storytelling that you do within the ring and promos and vignettes. So, I mean, I can't wait to see that kind of manifest itself. Obviously, it's a weird time right now, but when it does, it's going to be fun. It's absolutely going to be fun.
Definitely. And we really want to work as a tag team, not just with me managing, but it's just hard to find other places that are also have intergender tag teams. So it's a work in progress, but once the pandemic's over, we're hopeful that you guys will be seeing the both forms of us, the Sexy Beach form, and then I think we're called From Hell as the evil people. I don't want to lie. We haven't gotten to use it, so I don't really remember, but you know, it's gonna be fun either way.
Absolutely. And Colin Crandall from the MMA Power Hour says something very nice. This is awesome. Sarah the Rebel, reviewed by Adam the Rebel. Yeah, I have a face that I could be in ROTC, but that I digress, right? But who's the bigger rebel? Both are warriors. More Sarah than me, but I thank you even still, right? And Necro Stevo says I made, yeah. So thank you, Necro. And you don't have to apologize for your tardiness at all. I'm not a teacher, right? But obviously, if you could wrestle anyone past or present for a dream match, right? What I want to know is not just who it will be, but do you have a time period and a place that this match takes place? So it's a three-part question, and yeah.
So the funny thing is, I always struggle with this question because real nice, good wrestlers, they'll say amazing veterans and heroes of the wrestling world. But like, I love, what's her name? She was on the Mae Young Classic. She's a Yoshi wrestler. Why am I just suddenly forgetting her name out of nowhere?
Miko Satomura?
Yes.
Yes.
I think she's one of the most amazing wrestlers of all time. Do I want her to kick me? No. And if we're fantasy, China, I love her so much. Do I want her to drop me from a height? No. So I've always really struggled with this question because I'm like, don't want to take that. Not really looking forward to that. So for me, I've realized that the types of people I like wrestling are other character wrestlers like me because I can tell a funny or interesting story with that person versus trying to have this 5-star match that'll cement me in the history books or whatever. So Zelina Vega or Lana are actually two people I would really love to wrestle. Well, she's Thea Trinidad again. Are two people I'd really love to wrestle because I think we could play and have fun with that and think of some cool reasons why we're fighting, what would happen in the middle of that fight, and to make it interesting. So those are going to be my picks.
And I guess where does it happen? And if there's an era, which era?
I want to wrestle in this era. It's the best era for women's wrestling that we have. And sorry, I did forget one other person. I was supposed to wrestle Abaddon right before the pandemic, and then she got signed by AEW. So we were going to have a really fun time. A zombie versus a witch, essentially, was what was going to go down. But yeah, I'd want it to be in this time period. And, you know, I'd love all my matches to take place in WoW, just because WoW, I think, is the best storytelling and the best diversity of any women's rosters. I'd say their second is Impact. Impact is definitely, like, very close to WoW. But as far as, like, feeling like I am at a place where no matter what you look like, what you're into banging, what your genetics are, what your age is. Do you know how many 40-year-old moms wrestle at WoW? Like it just sounds crazy to say it, right? But it's like I think 5, like we have every letter of LGBT is in WoW, and we have every race, not every race, but so many different races all there, and it's a place where none of that affects if you could become the champion. And I just love that about them. And so I'm always if I can pick anywhere, the place I love, the place I want to work is WoW.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And Colin Crandall, so kind. Keep up the good work. And again, if you guys could check out MMA Power Hour on Fight TV and a bunch of other places, you should do that now. But Sarah, I mean, you've accomplished so much in, 2016 to like 2020, in a 4-year period, you've covered a hell of a lot of ground, so there's people that have helped you along the way to kind of get to where you are. So take all the time you need. Go ahead and shout them out.
Yeah, so of course it's Tyler Bateman with his 17 years of experience working as his manager. I learned so much. I got like an advanced diploma, got accelerated through there. Katarina Waters and Heather Monroe have been so generous with their time and with sharing thoughts and advice. And, if I have a question, I'm like, hey, is this okay? Or should I work at this place? Or what do you think about that? They always answer me. And that's something like really valuable and wonderful to me. Ricky Mandel is now teaching me a whole new side of things that I hadn't even considered. He's definitely a different style than like the Santino Bros style. So I'm learning a lot through him, and that's really exciting. And then overall, just everyone who is always willing to take the time to talk to me. Jessica Havoc, even my contemporaries who sometimes there are some wrestlers who don't like to wrestle gimmick wrestlers, right? There's some wrestlers who are like, oh, I'm going to have a match with you. And so I kind of give them a shout out too, because I've taught them we can do whatever we want, and we can still have the match you want to have while also having the match I want to have. So they've helped me grow, and I'd like to think I've helped them grow too.
I'd say so. I'd say so. You've to me, you've accomplished like quite a great deal. And Necrosivo, he points out a very good point. The diversity today is incredible. If you go back to even 20 years, none of that was so visible. Oh, no, 100%. I mean, say 20 years ago, that would be 2000, right? So that was like the gravy bowl, brawn panties, whatever. And nothing against any of that, but I mean, to say it was close to a legitimate sport, it was kind of far-fetched, right? But now this kind of women's revolution, I mean, the Joshi wrestling, whatever you want to call it, it's amazing, And again, there's been Joshi promotions in Japan and that have just been doing it, or Shimmer and Shine that have been doing it. And wow, in like, whether you count it as Glow, the first incarnation, or now WoW Superheroes, I mean, that's what you're getting. And you can see like, and it's funny, right? Because in the MMA sphere, right? Dana White famously said, literally 10 years ago, almost to the day, December of 2010, when Ronda Rousey was absolutely demolishing everybody in Strikeforce, like, we're never going to have women in MMA. Now there's 4 divisions, highlighting headlining pay-per-views and everything. And again, whether it be MMA or pro wrestling, you put a women's fight or match on the card. When people are going to their cars or people are kind of switching off their streams or whatever, those are the ones that more often or not, people are going to be talking about. And I love that.
Yeah. It's nice. And it's something that I've wanted since I was a kid. It's very interesting talking to my boyfriend, because we had such different perspectives, because he's a white man. So he has the very traditional, like, oh yeah, I love this commentator and I love that. Well, I pointed something out to him about Jerry Lawler that I actually stopped watching wrestling in large part because of Jerry Lawler when I was growing up, because he spoke about the women wrestlers as if he was a 13-year-old boy who'd never seen a woman before. Oh man, puppies! Oh, like, oh, she's so hot. Oh, Miss Kitty. Like the way he spoke about them, when what I wanted to hear as a child, these women were warriors. And I wanted to hear them spoken about and treated like warriors. And nobody turned me into a feminist. Nobody taught me that I should feel that way. That's how I naturally felt in my heart watching them. I'm like, you don't talk about anybody else like this. Why are you talking about the women like they're a walking pair of boobs? And ever since I pointed this out to him, he can't unhear it now. When he watches
Mhm.
that, he's like, oh my God, like he really does talk like a little 13-year-old kid who's like never had sex. Like, and he brings it up out of nowhere. And I'm like, so I just enjoy that we're now at the point where I'm not being, I don't want to say I was driven away from wrestling, but it was made very clear that it wasn't for me. And now I think little girls are growing up watching WWE with Sasha Banks, Naomi, Asuka. Like they are seeing women being treated like true champions. Bianca Belair, even Charlotte being the daughter of Ric Flair. And that's this huge thing. I think that's so beautiful and so amazing that they're going to grow up with all these different women to look at, and those women are being treated like the warriors that they are, and it just like makes me feel so happy to think about that.
Yeah, I think Charlotte in particular has made me do the unexpected, and I think this is what she wanted to do. Was I completely forget that Ric Flair's her dad until it's mentioned, and I think that's it. That's what you want. I'm just saying, right?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, Sarah, you're doing amazing things everywhere. But for people who want to follow you, who haven't already done so, follow you on social media and follow the things that you're doing, especially WWT, Women's Wrestling Talk. Where can they find that on social media?
First, I want to say I got a shirt. You should buy a shirt. Second of all, you can find me everywhere at Sarah the Rebel. Sarah's an H. It's very easy. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Twitch. I'm literally everywhere. For Women's Wrestling Talk, you should tune in to WWT Pod on Twitter or WWT. I think we're just WWT. I'd be losing track of stuff. On Instagram, we do live on the Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Twitch. And then our show itself is on Anchor every Tuesday and then on YouTube every Wednesday. And what we do is we interview women who are wrestlers and or women who are involved in wrestling in some way, like bookers or owners. And it's just really, I feel like something a little different than what a lot of other places are doing because we're focused on women's wrestling. So please give us some support and check out our stuff. And if you like it, share it. And then I also have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/Sarah the Rebel. And for December, I'm doing like a whole Santa Claus themed extravaganza. I'm going to try to do the 12 days of Christmas as far as content that I'll be giving you guys. So be sure to check that out. You can join for as little as $1, or you can get the $25 package, which is like the best bang for your buck.
There you go. I mean, no, yeah, bang in the buck, something to stuff in the stocking, all of it. But Sarah, it has been absolutely fabulous to have you here at According to Woods. And man, I want one of those very squally t-shirts. So hopefully there's one in a size rotund because it's throwing away.
You asked me about that. I'm gonna message you back after this ends.
All right, excellent. But again, thank you guys for joining us. And if you haven't already done so, go ahead and subscribe, like, share, and subscribe to According to Woods on both Facebook and YouTube. I mean, Sarah, you're subscribed, right?
Yep, definitely. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
And let me subscribe to WW Talk. Let me subscribe to my own stuff too.
Yeah, no, please plug it. WWT. Subscribe. I'm subscribed 100%, right? But if you don't take my word for it, or Sarah the Rebel, here's Zeta Zhang.